Hey everybody, Brian Zane here, back once again with my review of Night 2 of WrestleMania 36. If you missed my review of Night 1, which features the Immortal Boneyard match, the link to that is in the description below and is also available here in the iCard in the corner of your screen. Sunday's show begins once again with Stephanie McMahon saying this show is going to be a lot different from other WrestleManias. We get the same opening hype package with the Johnny Depp, Jack Sparrow sound-alike that we got on Saturday. And speaking of repetition, Gronk, your host of WrestleMania, is wearing the same clothes he wore the night before. The show officially opens up with the NXT Women's Championship match, starting off in a big way here. Rhea Ripley against Charlotte Flair. I like Charlotte's black and gold robe as she makes her way to the ring, and Rhea Ripley's special Mania attire, the white and the blue. It's a great look. Early on, Rhea stops Charlotte mid-corner flip, hits the riptide right away. We get a 2 count. Ripley with a dive off the apron to the outside. She's very aggressive early on until Charlotte yanks Rhea's knee over the top rope. Charlotte just spends several minutes stomping the hell out of Rhea's knee, and it looks really brutal, and Rhea be screaming.
Feet, a wild swing, and another kick to the back of the knee.
Rhea has some fight left in her, but Charlotte's too smart. Rhea does eventually mount a valiant comeback, including a big stomp right on Charlotte's boobs, then her inverted cloverleaf submission. Both women showing a lot of toughness in this matchup here. They're both fighting on the top rope. Charlotte drops Rhea to the canvas, goes for a moonsault, but Rhea gets the legs up. Charlotte does hit a spear. We get a kick out. Figure 4 attempt is countered, but Charlotte kicks out, gets the figure 4 right back in there, locks on the figure 8, and ultimately Rhea taps out. Charlotte is the new NXT Women's Champion for a third time in her career. I give this one 4 stars out of 5. A hell of a way to open Night 2 of WrestleMania. And even if you don't agree with who won this matchup, and me myself, I'm on the fence about it right now at this point actually, even if you don't agree, it was still a hell of a matchup. I love the story and the physicality, the way Rhea sold her ass off for Charlotte the entire time, and ultimately when she makes her comeback, giving Charlotte a run for her money. It was great stuff, and I was looking forward to this match from the beginning. It did not disappoint me. As far as Charlotte winning the belt goes, like I said, I understand why people would be upset about that, and I also kind of agree to an extent. I think that this company needs a lot more strongly booked female baby faces, or at least one, and if Rhea had won, it would have gone a long way into making that a reality. Her losing here feels like a step back, but if we just look at it, like I said in my predictions video, I think Charlotte being the champion would be a nice little shot in the arm for star power for NXT. Also, the hypothetical matchups Charlotte could have on NXT with this new crop of ladies that, weren't there when she was coming through NXT, I think that opens up the possibility for a lot of awesome matches. If they're anything like we saw with her and Rhea Ripley on this night, then I'm very excited to see what the future of the women's division could hold for NXT. Up next, Bobby Lashley taking on Aleister Black, who's rocking a very Mania-worthy robe for his entrance here. He begins with some quick moves. He misses the moonsault to the outside, though, takes a suplex on the floor. Lashley goes for a vertical suplex. Aleister fights out of it, but he does eat a power slam. We get a 2 count. Lashley goes for a spear, but Black puts a knee up, does hit the moonsault after a second attempt. In the end, though, as Lashley has things well in hand, Lana gets on the apron, shouts instructions, tells him to go for a spear. Lashley obliges, but it costs him in the end. He eats a Black mass instead for Black to win. I give it 2.5 stars out of 5. The match itself was okay, but like I said before, in the build to this, there is no build for this matchup here, so why do I care about them wrestling? I know some people have asked me in the comments section, does every WrestleMania match need build? And part of me says yes. I think that WrestleMania matches, by definition, because it is the biggest show, should have at least a modicum of build, but all the chaos and going to the empty arenas and stuff really kind of hamper that, I feel. But anyway, this match itself, you see Lana getting involved and costing Lashley the match, clearly setting something up down the line for more tension between them. We've already seen them involved in an insane wedding segment late last year, so fingers crossed for an insane divorce segment later this year. Bayley and Sasha Banks interviewed backstage. Bayley's upset at Kayla's line of questioning while Sasha remains silent. Once Bayley leaves, though, Sasha says in kind of a coy manner, we'll have to wait and see what happens in that title match later tonight. We then see Charlie Caruso with Rob Gronkowski, and Gronk says he wants Mojo Rawley's 24/7 championship by the end of the night. Will he get it? Spoiler alert, yes. Yes, he absolutely will, but we'll find out how we get there later on. Up next, Dolph Ziggler, in his very first singles match at WrestleMania, takes on Otis, one half of Heavy Machinery. And honestly, this story is a WrestleMania-worthy program. And if you don't believe me, just watch the hype package leading up to it, because they did a really good job just telling you all the twists and turns of this relationship. How it began with Otis, pining for Mandy, and Mandy kind of thinking Otis is a sweet guy. They have the date planned for Valentine's Day, and it goes all to hell when Dolph Ziggler swoops in and takes Otis's place. And then we find out on the go-home Smackdown before WrestleMania, it was actually a plot between Sonya Deville and Dolph Ziggler to get this whole date derailed so Dolph can swoop in, and Sonya, whatever her motives are for keeping Mandy and Otis apart, we haven't found that out yet, but that was the big emotional reveal that we found out. And so, man, it's just like all these twists and turns really makes this one of the programs to watch going into WrestleMania. Sonya does accompany Dolph to the ring for this match, by the way. Otis comes out strong, but Dolph hits a super kick in the corner. Otis tumbles out of the ring. Ziggler works him over for a while in the ropes until Otis launches Ziggler into the corner. Otis's big comeback thing where he starts to hulk up, it sounds really, really weird when there's no audience to help support it.
Otis right now has a chance at WrestleMania moment of being a two-time.
Otis with a big run here. He dumps Dolph out of the ring. Otis goes to the Caterpillar. Sonya gets on the apron though, distracts the referee, and boom, Dick Kick City by Dolph. Out comes Mandy Rose to save the day. She beats up her former best friend Sonya. She gets Dolph right in the dick. Caterpillar and Otis wins. Man, Dolph cannot catch a break at WrestleMania. So yeah, Otis wins the match, and then he gets the girl, and Mandy's in his arms, and they kiss. Oh my God, can you imagine the ovation that would have had if they were in front of a live audience? That would have blown there's no roof on Raymond James Stadium, but if there were a roof, it would have been blown right the hell off of WrestleMania and Raymond James Stadium. And for that alone, I give this one 4 stars out of 5. Yes, the match was what it was, but how can you beat a story like that? God, wrestling and happy endings, they don't go together that often, but when it does happen, man, it's sweet. And so to see Otis, the lovable Otis, get the girl and Mandy Rose, that was pretty awesome. It's like on par, I'd say, with Macho Man and Elizabeth reuniting, you know?
But maybe, just maybe, go to break.
In one of the most deeply personal programs of the entire WrestleMania season, you have Edge versus Randy Orton in a last man standing match. How cosmically unfair is it for Edge to spend 9 years getting back into the ring, gets ready for his big WrestleMania comeback, and it's in front of an empty venue? Life's not fair sometimes. The match begins with a sneak attack by Orton. He's disguised as a cameraman, hits Edge with not 1, but 2 RKOs. Edge barely gets back on his feet. Orton hits him with the camera. They fight to the backstage area. Orton tries to tie Edge up by his neck in some gym equipment, which is pretty hard to watch, especially because we just saw the Chris Benoit documentary on Dark Side of the Ring. Orton goes to attack with a weight, but Edge fights back. Edge is thinking about something, does some kind of assisted big sit off the pull-up bars. Orton almost attacks Edge with a weight sled, but he narrowly misses. Fighting behind the curtains in the lights, they make their way to the stage. Edge is launched into the barricade, but is barely able to get up. We're in the office area now, and I guess between this and the Gargano Ciampa brawl from a few weeks ago, there aren't that many spaces to film brawls here, apparently. Not a lot of difference here. Innovative spot by Edge, though. For some reason, there is chain link on the ceiling of the conference room, and he climbs up to it and elbow drops Orton onto the table. Orton throws Edge into some pay-per-view posters of the past. They go to what Tom Phillips calls an additional storage space. Just call it a garage, man. Now, at this point in the match where it's in the garage, it really begins to kind of break down for me as a fan here, because they keep fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, and by that point, you're just waiting for what's the big finish, what's the big end of this matchup here, but they take a long time to get to that point. And what makes it worse is how atrocious the commentary is. For this particular matchup, they're just totally subdued as this thing goes on. So they're trying not to wake anyone up, or they're calling a golf tournament more than a wrestling match. I don't expect them to scream and yell because obviously, they're in a different venue and there's no crowd screaming into their ears, so they don't have to talk over them. But come on, show me some kind of energy. Orton with a draping DDT onto a truck bed cover. They're able to make their way up to the top of a production truck. Orton goes for the big punt, but he takes a spear. Edge goes for another spear, but he eats an RKO instead. Where'd this giant ladder come from sitting next to this well-stocked snack table? Orton grabs some chairs, hits Edge with one. He goes for the concerto, but Edge puts Orton in a head and arm submission and knocks him out. The match ends with this very emotional moment here where Edge is standing over the prone Randy Orton, his former best friend. You could see Edge looking up to the heavens or the ceiling of the building, like 2 feet above his head. He's starting to cry and everything. Finally, he puts Orton out of his misery, hits him with the concerto. Orton cannot answer the 10 count, and Edge wins this very brutal match. I wanted to rate this match higher than I did, but ultimately it just kind of let me down. Because here's the thing. I loved the story and the physicality and the emotion and some of the innovation they had when doing some of the big moves, but I hated how long this match got by the end, and I hated the commentary in this thing. That one 1-2 punch really made me suffer as I'm watching this thing. If they cut that match down by 5, maybe even 10 minutes, you would have had a much stronger match, in my opinion. I don't want to use the lack of crowd as an excuse for why certain matches might work or might not work, but with a last man standing match where there's so many moments of like pregnant pauses and big spaces and gaps between spots, I think you need that kind of background noise, just kind of keep the momentum moving, make it feel like it's a living kind of thing. And the announce team were not helping with this one. Like I said, didn't expect them to scream, but put some more give me some more energy behind that. That was so weak, and that really made me have a hard time watching it by the end. We cut to Mojo Rawley being chased by a bunch of randos, not even a league of jobbers. Where's their Mania moment? Suddenly, Gronk dives off his balcony onto everyone, pins Mojo Rawley, and becomes the new 24/7 champion. Where's Drake Maverick when you need him? The Street Profits defend the Raw Tag Team titles against the team of Angel Garza and Austin Theory, who was a replacement for Andrade last week. And all 4 of these guys making their in-ring WrestleMania debuts here. In the match early on, Angelo Dawkins gets thrown out of the ring and is jumped with a kick by Garza. Dawkins is worked over for a few minutes, but is able to evade a corner attack from Garza. He dives to make the hot tag to Montez Ford. There's a big old dive onto both Theory and his own partner Dawkins. Garza with a flawless moonsault to the champs on the outside, another one in the ring to Ford. Dawkins is tagged back in. He takes Austin's TKO, but then Ford dives onto Austin, and with that, Dawkins covers and wins. The champions retain. After the match, the challengers are a bunch of sore losers. They jump the Profits. Even Zelina Vega gets involved. Then Bianca Belair shows up. She attacks Vega, hits her with a KOD. The Profits and Belair celebrate in the ring together. This one gets 2 stars out of 5 for me. The match itself, to me, nothing special, and also kind of a foregone conclusion considering Garza and Theory are barely a team. Although I really did like the aftermath, seeing Bianca Belair getting involved and celebrating with the Street Profits. She and Montez Ford are husband and wife, so really cool to see them share that moment together for the big show. And, you know, it makes me wonder, though, is Bianca getting called up to the main roster to be with them? That'd be a cool combination. I think they work really well together. Or is this just a kind of a one-time for the moment, like, hey, we're all in Orlando together, so let's give them this moment kind of thing. Then we see Titus O'Neil on the balcony. He's still there? He says that since Gronk has left the building as the 24/7 champion, that he's a new guest host. Okay, man, good for you. Bayley defends the Smackdown Women's Championship in a 5-way elimination match against Sasha Banks, Lacey Evans, Naomi, and Tamina, who I don't understand why they brought her back for this matchup here. She only had like maybe 2 weeks of screen time leading up to this thing. Really the odd woman out in this matchup because she's taken out right away, so the other 4 ladies can do their own thing for a couple of minutes. Sasha and Bayley work together, but Lacey and Naomi fight back. Tamina comes back in, takes out everybody, doing a lot of nonchalant pins though. We get a team battle reunion, but it's short-lived. Everyone takes a turn hitting their big moves on Tamina. She's the first one gone. Again, why is she there? Bayley with the best trash talk of the night so far.
You better run your little dance machine.
Lacey's taken out on the outside, so Naomi's fighting both Sasha and Bayley here. The numbers are too great. Sasha makes Naomi tap to the bank statement. It's 2-on-1 now against Lacey. Bayley goes for a big knee, but Lacey moves and Sasha gets got instead. Sasha's mad at Bayley and cannot grasp the concept that it was a mistake. Lacey capitalizes, hits the woman's right on Sasha, and Banks is gone. Bayley in no hurry to try and break up that pinfall. Down to Lacey and Bayley. Bayley's beating the hell out of Evans, but Lacey keeps kicking out. Bayley ties Evans the tag team rope at one point, beats her down in the corner. Lacey does hit the marrow saw, but we get a kick out. Suddenly, Sasha Banks is back, hits the backstabber on Lacey. Bayley with her finisher, and she wins and retains. Sasha then hands Bayley the championship, but looks like she might have ulterior motives maybe. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. Of the women's matches we saw on WrestleMania weekend, I would put this one at second place in quality behind Flair and Ripley. I like the structure of this thing. The story they told with Banks and Bayley I thought was great. Again, not sure why Tamina's even in this thing, but there you go. Up next, one of the strangest things I've ever seen, and undoubtedly the weirdest segment to ever take place at a WrestleMania. It's the Firefly Funhouse match as John Cena takes on the Fiend Bray Wyatt. What I'm about to describe and try and retell in this review cannot possibly do this thing justice. And I had a bad time trying to retell things in the Boneyard match the night before. This is going to be a lot stranger. If you really want to get the full context, just watch the match itself. The best way I can describe what happens is Bray Wyatt tortures John Cena both physically and psychologically, taking him on an interdimensional tour through time and alternate realities to expose Cena as a wrestling cancer. At least I think that's what I got out of it. John Cena making his entrance to no reaction. I will never get used to that. He starts to say, "Welcome to WrestleMania," but it's cut off by some spooky editing and the Funhouse intro. Bray is in the Funhouse and says that John Cena will go up against his greatest opponent himself. Bray leaves and suddenly Cena is teleported into the Funhouse. Ramblin' Rabbit tells Cena where the Fiend is, and now we're in a dark room. It's the Vince McMahon devil puppet, and he asks if he has the ruthless aggression, pal. Then they recreate the Smackdown debut of John Cena, or at least the best of their abilities. Like it's Bray Wyatt playing the role of Kurt Angle, and John Cena, like modern day John Cena, comes out in his old debut gimmick with the two-toned like shorts and the boots and knee pads, and like they have the Smackdown fist in the background. Like they don't have it hung up, but like they have the fist to represent this is the old Smackdown set. I just like I marked out when I saw that visual of Cena in the old gimmick. He gets in the ring and he says ruthless aggression and tries to slap Bray, but Bray just keeps like outmaneuvering him. It's like Cena is trapped. All he can say is ruthless aggression and try and go for slaps. It's the recurring theme of this match is that he's out of his control here. We then cut to a Saturday Night's Main Event motif complete with the old Obsession theme song. Macho, Mercy, and Mr. McBossman are the announcers. Bray in the Muscle Man dance outfit cutting a promo behind the steel cage brings out John Cena, who's supposed to be his beefy tag team partner, keeps lifting weights until his arms are too weak to attack, and Bray says that egomania is running wild on John. Bray shoves Cena into the next scene where he begins the white rapper gimmick. Cena raps to Bray about blowing his chances, and Bray says that he's fought for everything while John is the golden goose, and he calls Cena a bully. Bray then knocks out Cena with his own chain, and all of a sudden we jump ahead in the timeline. Bray is back to his swamp cult leader mode, talks about WrestleMania 30 and how his loss to Cena was his grandest failure, and says it's time to rewrite his own story. Back in the ring, Bray tells Cena to do what he didn't do at 30 and take him out with a steel chair. Cena swings, but Bray is gone. Suddenly, Bray is Eric Bischoff all of a sudden. He welcomes John Cena, who's rocking NWO colors and has the spray-painted WCW title, and Mr. McBossman on commentary with a great line.
This is such good shit.
Cena finally takes down Bray, taking all his aggression on him. You all see like the years of frustration, the scorn from the fans and everything. Suddenly, Bray is gone. In his place is Huskus the Pig Boy. The Fiend shows up behind Cena, mandible claw in his sister Abigail. They replace Cena's words from a few weeks ago where he says, you know, this match will rewrite, it'll right the wrongs from 6 years ago when we get rid of the most overrated and under-talented or whatever superstar in the history of the company, and now it's being thrown back at him to reference himself. So the Fiend hits Sister Abigail, mandible claw, and then other Bray comes in through some creative editing and counts the 3. So the Fiend wins the match, and we cut to black. Then we come back to Titus O'Neil, who just goes, I don't know what I just saw. Great, I'm so glad you came to replace Gronk, Titus. I don't even know how to properly grade this matchup. How can I objectively or accurately rate this match using the same scale or metric or standard as everything else, every other normal match in WrestleMania weekend? You can't. I mean, I guess if I had to pick a number, I'd say 4 stars out of 5. This was, like, again, the most different thing I've seen in a long time. And the fact they played this whole match out in this way where there's no real actual wrestling, there's maybe 2 or 3 actual bumps in this entire matchup. It's all storytelling. It's all just going through these throwbacks and these references they made. They were really entertaining for the most part. It shows how Bray really has John as his plaything here. He's just toying with him, and Cena can't do anything about it. To see him struggle and try and fight out of it, and everything's just working against him, and like Cena cannot find an answer. Every time you think he's got something going on, Bray finds a way to get out of it. It's his world, and Cena is just living in it. It was bizarre. I mean, it was bizarre in a fun way. It's not on the same quality as a Boneyard match. I maintain the Boneyard match still the best thing about WrestleMania this weekend. The Firefly Funhouse match is kind of like, it's getting up there, but it was just so interesting and different. I give them credit for thinking outside the box and doing something this vastly different. I think whether the circumstances made it so they couldn't do something live or not, I think that it's just really impressive they can take a leap like this at their biggest show of the year. It's really mind-blowing they would do something like that. Again, kudos to Cena for rolling with this and just going along with this. Seeing him like in the old the shorts again, in the old gimmick and stuff, I thought that was a really cool throwback. The juxtaposition of like debuting Cena with like without the prototype hair, with like the JBL hair, that was really something else. I mean, it was fun, but it was confusing at times, which I guess is kind of the goal, but it makes me wonder what what's going to happen to Cena from here? Like, is he written off for good? What will justify his inevitable return? Like, where does the Fiend go from here? Like, John Cena jump cut out of existence in that matchup here. As far as we know, he's done. So, like, what? But he's not done, is he? He's got to come back at some point. Maybe not to fight Bray Wyatt, but for some other program down the line. But, like, what? Where do you go from here? It's like, it was such a bizarre thing. And I guess we only have to wait and see what the future holds for the Fiend. If he can vanquish John Cena like that in his own mind palace, like, what does the future hold for the rest of the company? In your main event, the Royal Rumble winner, Drew McIntyre, challenges the WWE Champion, Brock Lesnar. Now, if you didn't like the Goldberg-Braun Strowman match the night before, you probably won't like this one so much either, because it's a lot of the same thing. Spamming finishers is pretty much the name of the game. Brock starts out fast, but Drew hits a Claymore right out the gate. We get a kick out, though. Drew goes for another one, but Brock dodges, hits some Germans, hits the F5, but Drew kicks out at 1. 2 more F5s, 2 more kickouts. Lesnar wants to go for another one, but Drew evades, hits another Claymore, then another. Drew pins and wins. It's that simple. Drew is the new WWE Champion. There's a great moment near the end as he's celebrating when Drew looks right at the camera and mouths the words, "Thank you," presumably to the fans. He celebrates as we fade to black. Like the Goldberg-Strowman matchup, this is not a technical masterpiece. This is not a match of the night, but just the moment of seeing Drew kicking out of that first F5 and fighting back to hit the Claymores, to slay the Beast, and to become the champion, finally fulfilling the prophecy that was spoken about him a decade ago, is a terrific way to cap off WrestleMania. To see him celebrate with the championship like that after all he's been through, it's a terrific story. And if we can't get the show ending with Otis and Mandy making out on stage, then this as a perfect Mania ending will have to do. And that was WrestleMania 36, the show that, as they say, was too big for just one night. So time for me to combine night 1 and night 2 and try to figure out my final score for this thing is. Given the circumstances, I think that these 2 nights were the best possible outcome they could have hoped for with this thing. Because you still have, across 2 nights, you still have your great matches, got your WrestleMania moments, you have your satisfying title changes with Braun Strowman and Drew McIntyre, you have some really creative ways to tell some stories. To me, the biggest disappointment all weekend was Last Man Standing, just because of the hype that I put into it personally, and how I don't think they really executed to the fullest extent. I liked a lot of what they were doing, but I think it was just too long in the tooth. Like, I liked it, but I didn't like it, if that makes any sense. Of the 2 nights, I would say that night 1 was the stronger one, and to me that's mostly based on the strength of it ending with the Boneyard match. Like, that match ending the way it did with that show, I was like, yeah, I'm super psyched for WrestleMania now. And then, like, on night 2, I think the Last Man Standing match kind of drained my energy and my spirit because it was so long in the tooth. And as far as the wacky matches go, comparing Boneyard to Firefly Funhouse, I would give the edge to the Boneyard match, even though the Firefly Funhouse match was still very, very interesting in its own respects. Do I want to see more 2-night WrestleManias in the future? Maybe, maybe not. I think that this weekend it worked out really well. I would much rather see 2 shorter shows than 1 long-ass show, whether it's live or in the comfort of my own home. Although I wonder if WrestleMania weekend can really sustain a 2-night WrestleMania. If we go back to the way things were of, crowds and live events and everything, I don't know. With everything else going on WrestleMania weekend, not just with WWE's own stuff, but all the other independent things going on, all the conventions and the shows and whatnot, I don't know how all these other businesses would be affected if WrestleMania went to 2 nights. Like I said, 2 short shows, I'm all for that over 1 long show. Maybe just have 1 short show or 1, somewhere between that short and the long, somewhere like that, Don't go the full 8 to 10 hours. Don't do that at all anymore. But I think that this was a very interesting experiment. They were backed into a corner. They reacted the best way they possibly could. I will say this, you can't knock WWE for, they don't ever retreat. They don't ever back away from something. Again, Vince McMahon apparently was the only person who wanted WrestleMania to go on, and whether or not you agree with that, that's still up for debate. I think that the safety of the wrestlers is more important than trying to pop a rating or trying to get some network subscriptions. But I think that when presented with this task and the way they executed it, again, probably the best thing they possibly could have done, the way they did it that night, these last 2 nights. But let me know what you thought about what's undoubtedly the strangest WrestleMania in our lifetimes in the comment section below. Give it a letter grade by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. And folks, finally, WrestleMania 36 is in the books. It's in the rearview mirror. And now all we have to do is wait until next year in Los Angeles, where we can finally, God willing, have a packed house in LA with people for WrestleMania. Time will tell. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.